Hey guys, DM Scotty here. Another problem people seem to have with the gridless system is kind of how do you handle going around objects or areas of difficult terrain, that kind of thing. So I thought today that I would, or on this video, I would talk about that and kind of give some examples. So let me show you that. So here we go, I have my setup. I've got some hot coal areas, which as a note, I made these just using the construction sand and the fire technique that I've shown in an earlier video. So I painted them yellow and then some orange on top and then red and then some black to give it like make it look like the coals look. So these areas are hot and will damage the players if they move through them. Also they're difficult terrain. So I've got the tribesmen here near the pits, and the players have caught up with them. So this warrior decides that he wants to charge into this one and knock it into the pit. So I'd use my measuring, and he's easily within distance. So he runs up, ends up knocking the guy in the pit. The guy doesn't save and falls right into the pit, so he'll take damage from that. So now the rogue here doesn't want to go through the pit to get to this one, so she decides that she's going to go around the pit. So she moves over this way, and I kind of measure from end of base to end, so she would be here, so that'd be 4. And then she wants to move up, so that'd be 2. So she doesn't quite make it to the difficult terrain caused her to lose some movement. Now she could just move through it and slowed, but she probably wouldn't get it anyway, and she'd take some damage. So she decides that she's just going to go do the move around. So the monk here, she's pretty badass, and just like the honey badger. So she decides that she's going to avoid the fiery pit also, the coals, and so she moves 2 over. So although she has increased her movement, so she's got a movement of 8. So she'll only move 2, so she's moved the 2 over. So she's still got 6 to go. So she's easily within range, so she just runs up and hits the next target. So that's just basically how you can do terrain. Now say the rogue over here decided that she wanted to go through the terrain. So it's basically 2 to move up to the terrain, and then it's 2 to go over the terrain. So that would be 4 inches, because each inch is 2 inches. So that'd be 2, 4, and she's still in the terrain. So I would say with hot coals that it's not immediate burn, but if she stays in the terrain, then the next turn, at the start of her turn, like when you get damage when you start your turn, when she starts her turn, she'd be on the hot coal, so she would take damage. I also say that if they're on, it's not just moving on the terrain, but moving off also. So if she moves off the terrain, she's going to have a 2 penalty. So on her next turn, it would basically be to move 1, to move off of the terrain, it would be 2 inches to do that, and she has 4 inches left, which is easily enough to get her to the next enemy. So that's how it works. Very simple. So I just say there's the movement penalty if you start on the terrain as well as moving through it. So that's how that can work. And if the players want to skirt the terrain, that's great too. And so you just kind of split your move with your measuring stick. You just go around the terrain or whatever it is. And this would apply, and of course hard terrain, this would apply also. If you're going around a wall that you obviously can't, unless you want to try to climb over it, you know, then I guess maybe you could, but it'd be more of a waste of time to do that than to just go around it. So you can do that too. You know, the player starts here and then they move to the edge of the wall and then they move around. Now I want to do another setup to kind of show that, so we'll do that. So here we go. Say our characters are moving into this area, and I've got hard cover as well as just some difficult terrain. There won't really be any kind of damage penalty for moving over this. It's just slowing. It would slow the characters down. So say I had my tribesmen and they're behind this hard cover. They could try to hide from the characters, and so when I set this up, I wouldn't immediately put these down. So the characters might make a perception check and say they fail miserably. The characters I wouldn't put the monsters down at all. So the characters wouldn't know that the monsters were there. So so then they move in. They decide to move in, and when this character, he kind of goes around the rubble and moves up. So I'll measure. He decides to kind of go up here. Well, of course, then he's going to see the creature that's hiding behind the hard point immediately. So, of course, what I would say is the creature had held its action, so the player gets immediately attacked as he goes around. So then the jig's up, and the players know something's going on. So they decide to move up, and she doesn't want to go through the rubble, so she's going to move to over here, and then she has a movement of 8, so she's going to move here, and she decides she's going to try to see if there's anything there, and she rolls a great perception and notices that there's a guy hiding there, and she decides that she's going to try to see if there's anything here. It's further away, so she fails, and so she doesn't see the guy that was hiding there, so she doesn't know yet. They don't know yet that the guy's hiding there. I would also have him, if he wanted to, help with the check, because he's near enough to the point that he might see something lurking there. So so he could help. But anyways, so then the fight would go on. Now say the players knew they were there and they were back, and they're back here. If they decide to attack with missile weapons, I would say these creatures have hard cover because they're behind hard, a hard point. Well, say the rogue here has a bow and she's here. I would still give him like partial cover, because she can see him pretty good, but it's not, she's kind of around the edge. So now if she's here, and he's there, I would say he has no cover at all, because she's parallel with him, looking straight at him. So kind of use your common sense when you give cover. There are certain the game, both Pathfinder and D&D have really hard set rules about line of sight and squares and all that stuff, but you don't have to be that anal about it to just kind of use your common sense. Okay, if she's there, she can see him plain as day. If she's here, he would have a little bit of cover. Keep in mind that these models are crouching behind the cover and all that kind of stuff. The model itself can't crouch and all that, of course, but the guy's if he's in cover, he's gonna try to use the best to the best advantage if someone's shooting something at him. So, always take that in mind. And so for her, he would have partial cover, and for this guy, he would have great cover, because this whole huge thing here. So, or if he could even shoot at him, if you say the guy's crouching or whatever, he may not even be able to see him. So, or you could have him hold his attack, and then when the guy pops up, to do something or look or whatever, then take an opportunity shot, or not an opportunity attack, but your held action and attack. So I'm much less when I DM, I'm much less stringent about like a held action. I don't make them say exactly what they're going to do. If the players know something's up and they're not quite sure what could happen, but they're like, well, maybe I can't really do anything right now, but I think I'm going to hold my action in case something happens. I'm pretty liberal about letting the players do that. and then state what action they're going to do when after they held it, after they kind of see a situation arise. So I don't make them state, I'm gonna pull out this potion, and then I'm gonna have my whatever ready. I'm not really that stringent with it. If they tell me they want to hold an action, I'll just, when they want to release it, before the end of the round, they can do really whatever they want. Anything that would be like a standard action or a minor action. No move actions, but standard or minor. So there we go. There's kind of like a quick and dirty way to do, around hardcover and cover, difficult terrain cover, sorry. So that's the way I do it. And any questions, always feel free to ask. I'm sorry if this seems, it seems obvious to some people, but a lot of people played with grids for a long time, and that's the way the game is presented, and the powers are measured in squares, so people think of the game in squares. It's really just inches. That's all it is. It's every square is an inch, so just think of it more as inches and not throw out the square and think about the inch. So but see how much more natural this looks than this difficult terrain. I threw it down wherever I wanted it. I didn't have to make it in a square shape to fit a grid. I made it the shape I wanted it, and then I just threw it down where I wanted it. And we have, the rules I've used in these vids kind of show you how to use this. So, just think about if I had to draw grids on this stuff, on this. That's like almost impossible to draw a grid on this with these stones and everything on there. So, and then these hard points, you could put, if it doesn't fit exactly in the square, what are you going to do? What do you say? Then it becomes even more difficult. So, really don't get stuck up on the grid thing. It's like, think of it in inches. It really frees the play area when you don't have to think of it as a grid pattern, when you can just think of it as natural terrain that the players have to get around. And so there we go. I hope this has been helpful. I'm trying not to be, I'm trying not to be condescending. I hope I don't sound that way. I really just want other players to see the benefit of this, playing without a grid, and how, much easier not only to, play, just the visual appeal of everything, but to craft the stuff that you're going to put in. Because if you're not restricted to like a grid pattern, then you can just do so much more with your terrain and your setups and everything. So, and it just seems to me like it's enough work to make this stuff, to make it fit to a grid pattern. That's like twice, to me, that's like twice the work. So, DMs and players, don't get hung up on the grid system. I guarantee that if you don't play with the grid system, a few games, and you'll ever wonder why you ever even wanted to play with a grid system. It's just so much more natural and fun this way. So, and and I think your brain kind of thinks of it more like a story, and as opposed to like a game where I'm moving a piece around a board. So that whole immersion thing is really part of the D&D experience, and what makes it different from a board game or a video game or anything like that. It's like there's no necessarily preset pattern that like on a video game or a board game. So I think taking the grids away makes it even more so. It makes it even more like your choices are in a world that's not restricted. So get away, rules lawyers, get away from that absolute grid pattern thinking, and just think of inches. And with these few simple tips on these videos I've shown you, you can move anywhere. You can do anything. And so I really wanted to make this clear. Sorry if I rambled on, but I really want to make this clear to players and DMs. Like I said, for players, let go of the grid system. Trust your DM. And DMs, don't be hard on yourself about knowing exactly where a square is. With the tools I've shown you, you can pretty much do anything that you would with a grid system. So I'll let it go at that, and please ask me if you have any more questions. I have my new DM Scotty Google Plus page, so friend me and please post. It's just really hard to discuss stuff in YouTube, so I started had a friend mention on YouTube that I should start some kind of forum like that, and I thought it was a great idea because it's just you can't really discuss stuff on YouTube very well. So I did it, and join me there, and I'm glad you could join me at the DM's Craft.